Okay, here we go. This is from Emmanuel, and he says, I'm sorry, Lee, but the great Vin Scully has the wild horse nickname to Yasiel Puig 10 years ago.
Well, I concur with you, but that was a decade ago, and I don't think anybody's trademarked that. And I'll tell you what, you watch what Tatis is doing on the field. He covers so much real estate, 2 area codes in right field. He's going on top of walls to get balls. Then what he's doing on the bases, gets to first base, it's automatic. He's going to second. And then what he's doing on plays to create runs and energy, et cetera. So to me, Wild Horse kind of sounds like the way he's playing right now. I hope he can continue it. Now, if you got a different nickname aside from El Nino and Wild Horse, go ahead.
When I hear Wild Horse, I think of the Rolling Stones. But I just love that play. When he went to second, the ball gets away, he goes to third, and Matt Williams is putting up the stop sign, and Tatis just went on instinct and galloped home. I mean, to be a wild horse. And he came after he crossed the plate. He was like jumping and exploding on his way back to the dugout. It was just terrific.
Yeah, the only thing missing was the sombrero hat or the swag chain.
Yeah, exactly. And then he threw out the guy at home plate. I mean, what a great series for him. This is going to be a fun 4-game series up in San Francisco starting tonight.
Yeah, and I think it's a litmus test. I mean, we find out if your phrase "turn the corner," if that is correct. All right, on we go. Next question on Fans Forum.
Okay, this one's from John Hopkins. He says, could San Diego State say, quote, okay, let's go independent and let the Pac-12 and Big 12 compound upon our door?
Well, I guess they could step away for a year or two, but what happens if the Pac-12 does not offer them? What if the Pac-12 rethinks the position and say, everybody has agreed in the grant of deeds to stay in our conference, nobody can leave, and each school has to sign that before the TV deal is finalized. So you could go independent, but what happens if it doesn't work out? And in terms of the Big 12, they were at Memphis this past week. University of Memphis got a pretty good football and a really good basketball program, and they got a much bigger following than San Diego State does. Now, the TV set markets is part of the equation. So I think you need caution. But why would the Mountain West do this? After all the things San Diego State has represented for that conference logo, why would they treat them this way? I mean, if I were the Mountain West Conference, handle this with class. Allow them to have the structure to sit another year if that's what needs be. Let them go have another basketball tournament team that brings in more money for the conference coffers, and then work with them on their exit fees instead of kicking the university president off the board of directors.
Yeah.
And instead of taking $6 million that they've already earned and said, we're not going to pay you. What kind of way is that to do business for a flagship university that has been a really good citizen in that conference? So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like one of your brothers getting a promotion. So, show the love, but here's a question for you, Lee. Now, there's all these rumors that, maybe Arizona State leaves, Utah, Colorado, maybe they leave the Pac-12. Do you think if the Pac-12 disintegrated that much, would the Mountain West and the Pac-12 merge as one?
There might well have to be some type of consolidation, but that's the worst case scenario. And how many schools can the Pac-12 have? You got 20 schools in a conference. What kind of conference is that going to be? And again, that's why they're working so hard. The president at the University of Arizona on Friday night, I think his name is Rob Robbins, said he believes everybody will sign the grant of deed this week, which then locks everybody into the new TV contract, and they go get the money. $37 million in a deal is not bad, and you can always build on it if the conference gets more powerful along the way. The Big 12 revenue share is $41 million per school, so it's not that big a difference. But to me, there's so much heritage out here. I mean, you go swing all the way back to the Pac-8 back in the 60s. Why? That's what upsets me so much about the Trojans and the Bruins. Why would you walk away from the heritage of what this conference is? So I don't think Oregon and Washington are going to leave. I don't know that the corner schools, Arizona State, should leave. Colorado's a different scenario because that's where they came from. I don't think they should have ever left there to begin with, but they're not going back to the same conference. Oklahoma's gone. Mm-hmm. Nebraska's gone. Texas is gone. Texas A&M's gone. That's not the same Big 12 from yesteryear. So It's just a different time. I hope they solve it.
Yeah, I hope so too. This is going to be a fascinating few weeks here as we get near that June 30th deadline. Here's another comment here from Manny. He says, which network or streaming service has the inside track to give the Pac-12 the money they are looking for?
There's not many opportunities out there. One of the things that the conversation point is they are negotiating with Amazon to stream. Now, everybody's going to get into this thing where you got to buy the streaming service, and that's going to upset John Q. Fan, who's normally turned on ABC and watched Pac-12 football for a lifetime,
right
before Keith Jackson.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. ESPN is out of the mix because of all the things that they've done, and ESPN has now gone into cutting cost mode. Fox may well be out there. The general consensus from what I've gotten from the people I network with, it's going to be a two-tier thing, and Amazon might well be a streaming carrier, and then obviously you've got whoever's going to be on the network. So we'll find out. I would think before July 4th, we're probably going to find out what's going to happen with the TV deal and the dollar value, and then that immediately spins off to who gets offered to go, if anybody gets offered to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, however it sorts out, it's going to be an upgrade for San Diego State.
Well, we think, unless they don't get an offer.
Well, yeah, and then if they're in no man's land, then it could be a little bit tricky. But they're going to get offered. I mean, the Pac-12 needs them. The Big 12 could certainly use them as well. So.
Okay, you can do the show from left field. That's fine.
Let's get some social media commenters in here, and this is from the Ashtray of LA on Instagram. Says, I'm interested how the Padres are going to do against the good teams. LOL. Tampa about to carve them up.
Well, Ashtray, Tampa. I mean, that was a pretty good 3-game series. Pretty tense, right on the edge. Tampa's defense is not what I thought it would be. I was kind of surprised how sloppy they were at times. Shortstop, third base, catcher. Padres have to prove they can do it on a game-by-game, series-by-series basis, and we have not seen that yet. So they go play the Giants. Like I say, 10 of the next 13 on the road. They really have to dominate this to stay in the hunt, because if they get wiped out in the series, next group or series of games, they're going to be in a world of hurt, because they'll be so far back with so many teams they would have to vault over. And you can say, well, the Padres will hit their way back into it, but then you're presupposing that everybody above them is going to go on 10-game losing streaks,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think you can do that. They have the best roster of any of these teams. They have the most experience, and these guys have not hit up to their standards. And I know Manny Machado's walking around peeved at the San Diego media. Just read the back of my baseball card. Well, the back of your baseball card said you're a 290 hitter, and you're hitting 234. I haven't hit very many home runs. So that's what the back of the baseball card used to be versus what is now. So let's give them this 13-game stretch and see how they do.
Well, we were saying before, it's early. Well, it's not early anymore.
Yeah.
The All-Star break is in a few weeks.
Yes.
And, so, yeah, they got to get their act together. No time like the present. Okay, here's one from Stand Up talking about giving the players a second chance. He says, Kaepernick was demoted to second string, and he quit the NFL. He wanted starters pay, but he was no longer of starting quality. He was given chances to come back, but he turned them all down. He's nothing but a charlatan.
Well, I'll disagree with you, because he was hurt and he had major shoulder surgery because he took a pounding. Statistically, he wasn't the same quarterback towards the end in San Francisco because he got hurt a bunch. Had only one team that expressed interest, and that was coming in to be the number 2 guy to compete for the job, and he didn't take the offer. I don't understand why he got bad advice or why he didn't just control his career. But by the same token, let's be realistic here. When he was young at 28, the guy could still play post-surgery. Why he didn't take an offer, why somebody didn't offer him. You look at the laundry list of quarterbacks who got signed. Josh Johnson, USD, has been on 14 different rosters.
That's right.
And he can hardly play, and yet he kept getting re-signed, and Kaepernick was out. Now, Kaepernick can't play anymore because he's age 34 going on 35, and he's been out of it 6 years. But back then, at 28 or 29, why he didn't get a look-see from a bunch of clubs who had lost quarterbacks because of injuries just absolutely stuns me. And freedom of speech is part of the equation. He didn't do anything illegal except stand up for a social cause that he firmly believed in. And I went back. I interviewed Colin Kaepernick one time in his career, And I went back and looked at the social causes that he's been involved in, John. I mean, he donated $1 million money to children's hospitals in Ghana to
Really?
build hospitals. And what he's done for after-school education programs in the Bay Area, San Francisco and in Oakland. It's just amazing. And food programs for kids in the inner city schools in those cities. I mean, the guy's a good citizen. It just ended really badly.
Well, remember when he broke into the league? I think wasn't Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the
Mhm.
49ers, and was Alex Smith the starting quarterback? And I think they benched him and put in this Kaepernick guy. We're all going, who in the heck is he? And he led him to the Super Bowl, against the Ravens. He was electric in his first couple of years. But it's interesting. It's so politicized, and so a lot of times, the haters on Kaepernick that didn't agree with his social stance will sometimes use the excuse that he couldn't play anymore. But to your point, he was injured.
He was, and he had surgeries, and that was a big issue. And unique kid. I mean, they found him at Nevada, Reno. He was a really great college quarterback. Doesn't necessarily equate to being a great NFL quarterback, but he strung together some good years. So it's just the social causes, I think, indirectly impacted him. Now, maybe he had to go to a special offense, and that's why a bunch of teams did not call him. The Lamar Jackson type offense would have been a fit for him, but him going somewhere else is strictly a pocket passer, and somebody else's offense might not have worked. On we go. Next question.
On we go. So here's a question about the PGA. This is from Chris Stock. He says, I suppose the only real losers are the PGA members who stayed loyal and didn't take the blood money. They are persona non grata.
Well, let me give you a couple spins on this because we talked about it extensively last week. As part of the merger, if it ever gets approved by the Department of Justice, because they're now examining it, it's going to take about a year. But when the merger occurs, the PGA is going to run every facet of golf between the ropes. There will also be a new business venture, which is funded by the $3 billion that the Saudi fund is putting into this pot, a business venture in which the loyalty guys, the Rory McIlroys, the Tigers, whomever, are going to get bonus money for staying on the PGA Tour. And that money will come out of the LIV fund that was used to set up this thing. Now, it's complex. We don't have all the details yet, but just think PGA golf globally, where you can work the calendar to make all these events and then the creative events part of the European tour. So therefore, the John Rahms of the world and the Xander Schauffele's and whomever go abroad and play in a team concept in maybe a 3-day tournament where the PGA flag is planted in Paris or in Barcelona or in Morocco. The amount of money to be made by going into markets that have never really had, quote, all the stars, and now these would be the global stars coming to play, it's going to be phenomenal. And so those type of business investment created tournaments, the loyal guys are going to get a chunk of the profits out of that. That's how it was explained to me.
That's awesome. I mean, they deserve it, for sticking with the program. But I just look at this more broadly is look at the financial opportunity that's available in all of these sports, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, golf. I mean, it's endless. And to see it go worldwide, I think is awesome because I think sports, like the Olympics are supposed to be, is a way that we can bring people together.
Concur. And you see what the NFL's trying to do. They've been a little bit behind the curve about putting teams abroad in Europe. They are playing international games. NBA has just become a mega international game. National Hockey League has always been in certain hockey countries. Mm-hmm. Obviously not in Tokyo, Japan, but in Norway and Sweden and England and those places. They're playing games now abroad too. So it has grown. A couple more questions here in our fans forum.
Okay, here we go. This is talk about the MLB salary cap. This is from Doug on Twitter. The owners in Pittsburgh and other cities do not want a salary floor because they want low payroll for maximum profit. Pittsburgh cut payroll after a 98-win season in 2015.
It's a problem. It's a problem for about a third of the teams in Major League Baseball. And that's why I was taken by surprise by Hal Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, last week, indicating I'd be in favor of a salary cap as long as there was a bottom floor that every team had to spend. And then Scott Boras came up with a formula that every one of these teams that takes revenue share has to spend to a floor 3 years in a row to make this work. It's just in the idea stage right now. The union has kind of said, no, we're not going to go there. Why wouldn't you go there? It just doesn't make any sense to me. When you'd force Kansas City and Pittsburgh and Miami to spend to 110 million rather than 60 million, that'd mean 40 million per year that somebody could go sign to play for the Pirates and Royals. The player, the mid-level veteran player, would extend his career. He'd get a nice payday. And by the way, he'd probably help the Royals and the Orioles and the Tigers and Pittsburgh, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And what's interesting in Pittsburgh is they just upgraded the ballpark. It's not just the fact that it's the new PNC, but they upgraded the sound system, kind of like they did at Petco a number of years ago. So why are they not investing in players? Instead they're investing in infrastructure. I don't know. I agree with you. I think they need to have a floor just to keep the sport competitive.
The money's there. Everybody can make money in Major League Baseball. And the prime example is what's going on down the road here in the Gaslamp Quarter, Petco Park.
Yeah.
Padres have had 28 sellouts already, broken single season record, and we're not even to the All-Star break. Second biggest attendance in baseball. Only the Dodgers are drawing more. Padres are drawing a shade over 40,000. Just think about the money that the Padres are generating and the product on the field and what it's meant to the fans and the community. And in all honesty, the Padres have kind of rebuilt the heart of our city. Our heart was broken by what Dean Spanos did by yanking the Chargers out of here. Now the Padres have healed us. Just look at Petco Park, how freaking electric it is.
It's awesome.
Yeah, whether you're in the stadium, you're in Gallagher Park or whatever, it's cool. That's what happens when you have a revenue stream and you commit to spend it and you go get players, and hopefully you don't make mistakes on the players you're spending the money on.
Yeah, well, it's too bad they can't do that in some of these other cities.
I concur. But Florida spending, that'd be a starting point.
Okay.
It would. Last question of the day on our bonus podcast.
Okay, this is from Fat Albert talking about how we judge athletes. He says, it's a Cartesian coordinate system. The independent axis is performance. The dependent axis is likability. Guys like Ryan and Koufax automatically get it. Guys like Bauer and Kaepernick never do.
Decision-making. Why would you do anything that would put your career and your contract in jeopardy? Decision-making. But not all of us are smart. A lot of guys come from bad backgrounds and keep making bad decisions because they're running with the same people off the field that are causing problems. So it's everywhere. It doesn't matter what sport it is. You're going to have players who have problems based on where they came from and how they got there and what their value system is. So thing is, you got unions to represent them, to guide them. You have a commissioner that will discipline them if they step way off the line, aka Jean Morant.
Yeah. Well, for the longest time, these kids were prima donnas. They ruled their high school when they were as an athlete, and they've been insulated from a lot of the external world. And so now they get a big, kind of a bunch of adulting that kind of gets thrown at them, and they've got to step up. And some of these guys are just ill-equipped.
And that's hard to believe because the unions of each of these elective sports make programs available for them. And it's obvious a large chunk of the players who get in trouble blow off the programs, don't read the playbook,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Hey, listen, we hope you